Hello, my name is Jonathan, and today we're going to see how can we use Bit to share a theme, logic, and types between React and React Native. What we have here on the screen is our demo component, which is going to be an accordion. This accordion has a simple listener on click or on press on React Native that it will open the menu, and we can select one of the options. We will also implement this accordion on React. Okay. And these two elements, they're going to share a lot of code. They're going to share the hooks, they're going to share types, they're going to share some of the design tokens, and they are also going to have different styling because we might want to have the mobile version styled differently. So they're going to share some of these tokens as a base, and then they are going to have their own version. Additionally, I'm running here on the side Expo, so we can see that the React Native one, it's also running good in iOS as well as on Android. Okay, so thank you very much, and let's start with the project. So first things first, we need to check that we have Bit installed in our computer. So to do that, we can run bit-b. So we do have it installed, so we're good to go. If not, you can head to the documentation at bit.dev/docs and check how can you install Bit. Okay, now we want to create a new workspace. And we can check which templates we have available by running Bit templates. Now we see that here we have several React templates and also React Native one. I will choose this one, okay, and I will use the command bit new to create my new workspace. Okay, now I can pass in some flags. I already know which scope I'm going to use, so I can say default scope. It's going to be learn Bit, which is one of the organizations at Bit. Dot share React Native. Okay. Oh, I missed a word in the command, which is the name of my workspace. So I'm going to call it share React Native. Okay. Now it's going to create my workspace. It's going to bring me the files that it will need. We can start giving a look here what we have. So what do we have? So basically we have some configuration files, which are these ones. These are for ESLint, Prettier, and TypeScript. And we also have the Node modules folder. And we also have this demo folder that contains 2 demo components. We're going to give them a look in a few seconds. And we have 2 very special files that are workspace.json and bitmap. Okay, so let's speak first about this .bitmap file. We're creating components on a component-driven architecture. Okay, so that means that every component is going to be independent. It might consume other dependencies, but on itself, it's going to be finished. It's going to be capsuled and ready to consume as a dependency. So when we have these components need to have an ID, and each component has different configurations. Now, this .bitmap file is where Bit stores which components we have in our workspace and the configurations for those components. So we can see that here we have 2 components where the key is the ID of the component and the configuration. For example, we can see that this is this component, the main file is called index.ts, this is the default scope, these are the configurations, and here we have another component that has some other configurations. Okay. So what you need to know about this file is that you should not modify it on your own. Okay, this is a file that Bit creates and Bit handles on its own. So the idea is that this file it shouldn't be modified by yourself. Okay. On the other hand, we have this workspace.json file. This is the configuration for our workspace, and it contains some configuration that they are related to the development server, for example, this part. Okay. We also have the configuration, which is the default scope for our components. Of course, that components can have different scopes. And we also have a section for the dependencies. Okay. A small note about and variants. Okay. So if you never saw what are these variant things and these dependencies, basically here we're going to have all the dependencies that our components will need. For example, let's say that I need Lodash. Okay, so if I need Lodash, I can do bit install Lodash. Now, will it be installed for all of my components? No, it will only be installed on the components that consume Lodash. We can actually see afterwards that despite having all your dependencies in this workspace.json zip files, the components will only have as dependency those that they are consuming. So if I have Lodash and it's being consumed by package A, but not by package B, it won't have it as a dependency, which is cool because it's done out of the box. You don't need to handle that. On the other hand, let's say that I have a component that it's component C that needs another version of Lodash. It needs maybe a downgraded one. So for that, I can use variants, okay? On the variants, I can specify that one specific component, I want it to consume another version of dependency. So this is a way that we can handle dependencies. Dependencies can also be handled through environments. We're not going to get to deep dive here, but it's important to know that here you can see which dependencies you have in the workspace. Now, the dependencies that you have in the workspace might be consumed by your components, but it doesn't mean that all your dependencies that you have here, they are going to be dependencies on your component, okay? Because Bit is smart and can know which dependencies it actually needs. We will give it a look through the development of this project. Okay, so we have two components, okay? The thing that I recommend to do is, okay, first we need to cd into that folder. We're on the parent one, which is the desktop. So let's cd into the share React Native. Let's open it on Visual Studio Code. I can close this one already, so bye-bye. And we'll keep on going here. And I like to have open 2 or 3 terminals. One of them is going to be the server, okay? To run the server, you can do bit start, okay? And it will start running the development server. Let's give it a few moments. Okay, it finished loading and I can go to my browser and I see that I have here some components, okay? Now, I said that I recommend to have several terminals open. So one is for the server, one is for a watch command, which is going to automatically detect changes on my component and render those changes again on the server. So bit watch for that. And I will have a third one just for running commands, okay? Now, I see that this has like some issues, so I can check what's going on with bit status. And it's telling me that everything is okay, so maybe I just didn't install dependencies and compile, so which I didn't. So let's do bit install and bit compile. I didn't run it yet, so maybe afterwards that we compile, we will check that we don't have any errors on the UI. Let's stop the server. Refresh, and everything is looking good. Basically, when you have new dependencies, try to install them, compile, and refresh your server, okay? Now we have this server running, and we have 2 components. We can see that these components have different logos next to their name. That it's because of the environment that they are consuming. So this is a React Native component. We can see it here by hovering, and this is an environment one. Every component needs to have an environment, okay? And only one, not more. So we have this text component and we have this environment created, but we're not actually going to use these components, so let's remove them. To do that, I will go to my my third terminal and I will do bit remove, and I want to remove these components, but I don't know their ID. So I can say, hey, bit remove. I can try to guess. I know that maybe this one it's UI/text, and I hit the right command here. But if I try to do the other one and I want to say, hey, bit remove ems/my React, and I'm going to tell yes, please delete. Hey, this is not the right component. You're not hitting the right ID. Please specify a valid one. Oh no, which one is that? I don't know. We can check by basically on 2 places. One is to pick on the .bitmap. So I can pick here and I can say, this one is the one that I need. But this one is at this moment super easy because I only have one component. How would I know if I have several of them? So for that, you can run bit list to show a list of all the components. Now, I suspect that this might be my component, so I can pick into by doing bit show. Now, pay attention that when I did bit show, I cut down the scope, okay? Because it's not stored with the scope on the .bitmap file. Okay, so you need to, when you're going to do bit list or when you're doing bit show, sorry, don't include the scope. All right, so this is the idea of the component. Okay, so I want to remove it. I know that the ID it's ems/my React Native, so bit remove. I pass the flag -s because I don't want to be prompt to be if I am sure, because I am. And the ID we said that is ems/my React Native. We erase it, and if I go to the UI and I refresh, it's telling me, hey, your workspace is empty. Cool, now we can start. So what we will need? First of all, we'll need to have some accordion components, okay? So bit create. Before we create, I wanted to mention something. If I run bit templates again, this time I will have the templates for creating components, not for creating a workspace. And the reason is because I am already on a folder that contains a Bit Workspace. So when I run Bit templates, I can see that I have all of these templates, which are components, okay? So, and it tells me, hey, you can create by running this command. Okay, now I will show you something. If I do bit create -h, I can see all the options when I create a component. And I can see that it can accept several component names. So I can create several components at once with only one command, as long as they are the same template, okay? So I'm going to do bit create React Native, and I'm going to create a component for the theme, which is going to be a theme/mobile. And also I will need the React Native component. So I will do base UI/React Native/accordion, okay? So one command, two components, amazing. Now, let's create also the React one. We will also need a React component. So bit create React, and I will need a theme/web, and I will need base UI/React/accordion, okay? We created two more components, so we have 4 components so far. These 4 components, the React Native is going to consume the theme from the mobile theme, and the React one is going to consume the theme from the web version. But where are those tokens coming from? They're going to come from more components. So we will have another component that it's going to be the tokens, okay? So I'm going to say bit create, and these tokens, they're just going to be a plain object. Like it's going to have, I don't know, background color, primary color, maybe some border. It's just an object with properties. It doesn't need to have a React or React Native specific environment. So I just can use the node one, which is pretty plain. And I will say I want to create the design tokens, okay? The base tokens. And since React and React Native have different types for the properties, we will need to extend these base tokens differently for each case. And the reason is that, for example, on React, I can use, I don't know, padding 16 pixels or padding 16 1RM or different units, while on React, it's unitless, it's just a number. So to define that, I need to extend some basic token and then make it specific for each one. So I will say, I want to create some tokens that they are going to be basic, and I want to create some tokens that they are going to be React tokens and design tokens /React Native. Now, I know that for some people this might sound like, hey, you have too many components. Why don't you have everything, I don't know, placed together as just one or maybe two? And the reason is composability. The more and smaller components that I have, the better use I can use to consume it on different projects. And my applications can be more autonomous from each other. I can recycle more pieces to be used on more places. So actually having more atomic pieces helps me in the future to code less. So that's the reason I want to create smaller components than rather large ones. Okay, besides that, creating smaller pieces can allow to more people working on the same project, easier debugging, and all the benefits that it has not to work with a giant piece of code. Okay, so we created these three components for the tokens. We'll also need one more that it's going to be for the types. I mean, we want to have these accordions to have the same signature. We want these two accordions to receive the same props. We want it to basically the same props, maybe some other stuff, but let's start with those props. So bit create, and since it's just going to be types, just a node template will do. And let's do API/accordion. Now we create a bunch of components. Let's see how our bit list looks like right now. And we have some more components looking good. Now what will happen if we run bit status? Now bit status, it's telling us, hey, you have some components that they are okay, which are 5 or 6, and we have 2 that they have issues. Now let's think about this. We created this workspace as a React Native workspace. So it has the dependencies that it needs to have a React Native project going on. But we also are creating React components. And these React components, they happen to need a dependency that it's not on our workspace. So it's like yelling us, hey, you are on this file. Let's head there. So let's go to accordion.spec.ts. Okay, not this one, from the React one. And it's complaining, you don't have this dependency, please install it. I agree, let's do it. Okay, so let's install this dependency here. So let's do bit install, and I want to install testing library/React. Now have in mind, we are using React 17. So for those who don't know, React 17 requires testing library 12, because if you use the 13 version, it's for React 18, and I don't want to have incompatibilities issues. So let's use I already know which version do I need, which is the 12.1.5. Okay, let's install it. Now, if we do bit status again, everything looking good. Now, when you install new dependencies and create new components, you might need to stop the server. Okay, so I will stop it and I will rerun it. Let's go to the server. And okay, it's showing me a 404 because we deleted this UI text component, which makes perfect sense. But if we open here, okay, it finished loading now. So we see that we have all these components that we created on the right places. Okay, they also have this icon that represents which environment they are using, and it's looking good. The React Native is having the React Native. This one is having the React one. So far, so good. Now, let's start creating our project. Okay, so we have just finished creating our components, creating our workspace. We already saw how all of these components look, more or less. We also know that we don't have errors running bit status. What's next? Let's build some accordions, you will say. And yes, but step by step. First, we need to create the contract that we want these accordions to have. So if I go to, for example, the React accordion or the React one, I actually don't want to have these accordion props. Let's open them side by side, okay? So I don't want to have these two accordion props defined twice. This is code duplication. I might have defined here that I need like an element list and that it's going to be, I don't know, some kind of array. I don't know, maybe it's a string array, while here it might be something different, and maybe this one it's, I don't know, some kind of number arrays, I don't know, whatever. So I don't want to have these kind of inconsistencies, okay? So I would like to have this on a separated component and consume it. So first thing, I'm going to remove it from here because I don't want it to have it here. I want it to have it on my accordion, okay? Now, this accordion, it's not going to have a function that returns just a hello world. It will have just some code definitions. For the sake of practicity and not making this video longer than it's actually going to be, I will grab some values from the site, just not to make it a React tutorial, because we want to focus on the composability and the component building itself. Okay, so pardon me if I grab some values from the site. Okay, so let me bring it here, and I will actually don't need React, or do I need React? Yes, I need React here because I'm going to use CSS properties. Okay, actually I can just bring those properties. Okay, I don't need to bring whole React. Let's bring CSS properties from React, and here, thank you very much, I don't need you. Okay, so let me show you to you how this file looks like. Basically, what do we have? So we have defined an item, okay? An item is going to be for the accordion, okay? So this accordion is going to receive an array of items, that each item has the string that it needs to show and an ID, okay? For example, if we're going to have an accordion that is going to show football teams, okay? It's going to implement this item type, okay? It's going to be an array of these items, okay? And this array of items, when the accordion receives it, it's going to be received under a property named element list. Okay. We also have other implementations that they're going to be shared. So basically, these accordions, they're going to have to consume some kind of item component, and the accordion is going to render an item for each one of these units. So these props that they are defined here are for what they are going to be each item. Pay attention that we have some kind of base props, okay, that then it's being extended on each case for the React and React Native. You will have access to all of this code, okay, but I wanted to share it with you. Okay, so since this is just a file that contains mostly definitions, I am going to get rid for now of the tests, okay, and also the compositions. Remember that compositions are a way to show how you can compose with those components. Now, lastly, I will update this documentation, okay, because I am not going to run a function here anymore. I'm just going to have some very basic description, okay. You can be more eloquent on your documentation. This is just a demo. Now, did you pay attention that here the server refresh? We made some changes and it refreshes, which is good. Let's give it a look how it looks on our browser. So I'm going to refresh here too. Let's go to API, and all the changes that I made to the MDX file, they are the changes that I'm going to see on the documentation. Okay, we're here on the overview. Now, compositions won't have anything because we deleted the .composition file, and the tests, it's going to show something similar because we deleted the test. Okay, actually it's kind of showing that we still have it, so let's compile again and refresh because we don't have a test file for this one. So I will just bit compile and bit start. I'm going to refresh and it's telling me, hey, you don't have test. You're right, I don't. Now, I have these definitions, and the first definition that I want to use is the accordion props. I just want to say, hey, on any one of my accordions, I want to bring this type, right? Now, how would you do it normally? You will say, import the type from, I don't know how many folders up. Let's give it a look. 1, 2, 3. Now I need to start going down, /API/accordion. Now, it's yelling at me here because I did update the file, but I didn't update the exports. Okay, so remember to specify on the index file what do you want to actually export from your component. There might be pieces that you don't want to export. An example of that is this item props. This type definition, it's being used as a base for these two, but I don't actually want to export it because I don't need these two, I need the extended ones. So if you don't need it, you should not, okay? So I don't need to export it. Now I updated the export and I can see that here it's not yelling at me anymore. It's yelling at me here. And why is that? Because accordion props, it's not requesting a text anymore. It's requesting an element list. So I would like to deconstruct this element list for consuming it afterwards. I will just place a hello world here. Okay. And now we have this error on TypeScript that it's just TypeScript complaining. So I don't want to get into the details of this one, but basically we can fix it by creating some overrides on our workspace.jsonc. Okay. So I will say overrides. And let's open the object, and we would like to, because maybe some dependencies are bringing React 18, or maybe they are bringing the types of React. Actually, I think that it's going. That's the actual guilty suspect. So let's write at types/React. Let's also add 17.0.2. And lastly, just in case, if we have something with a testing library/React, let's also specify that we want this specific version of 12.1.5. Okay. I'm not getting here too deep into dependency management. I just wanted to show it to you that if you need to override, you can do it here under the dependency resolver. Okay. Now, let's delete the yarn.log. Okay, let's stop the server for a sec. And let's install all of our dependencies again. Okay, bit installed and bit compiled. Okay, so we have installed again. Let's give it a look to TypeScript. Let's refresh, reload the window. Now it's looking good. It's not complaining anymore. Okay, so we were here at this point that we are bringing these props to be consumed on this accordion, but this import it's relative, and that's not good. We want it to be consumed as a package. Okay, so we can fix it by adding the package name that it's going to have, which is going to be at learnbit.share-react native anon, or we can fix it manually, but it's too much work. And actually you can make typos or something. So let's do a command that will do it for us. And that it's bitlink rewire. You can head to the documentation to give a further look of these commands that we're using. Or you can use also bitlink-h. You will have an explanation of what you can do with each command. Okay. Now, when we run this bitlink rewire, it changed all of our relative imports to absolute ones. This is going to be the package that it's going to hold these definitions once I export it. I didn't export it yet, my components. They are just running locally. I'm saving that for the end. How can we finally tag? Tag is creating a snapshot, and exporting it to the cloud, okay? Once the component is exported to the cloud, you can consume it as a package on basically any project that you have. It can be a Bit Workspace, you can consume them using npm, pnpm, yarn, whatever you're using for your projects. But the important thing that this API accordion component, for example, it's going to be a unit. It's encapsulated. You can bring it, you can install it, you can create new versions. And it's amazing because this is a good way to consume things, not to have them stick around in a large code base that afterwards you cannot extract the parts that you need. So we brought here the accordion props, but we didn't bring the import statement. So let's do it too. And here let's do also the element list. And here let's do also a hello world, okay? Now, if we go back to our server and we give it a look to these components, let's go to, it's on base UI, React, and React. We can see that it's failing when attempting to fetch a resource right now. Why? Because the server is not running. So that's the reason I have several terminals. The idea is that you will leave the server one for the server. Don't do what I do on using it for other stuff. Okay, now let's go back. I will refresh and we can see the accordion. Now it finished loading. So here we have this example. It's saying hello world, which makes sense. Now we can update a little bit this documentation because this is the documentation that came with the component and it's not relevant anymore because it doesn't receive a property named text. So we should update that. I will bring it from the side because I don't want to be like super, I don't want to make it super long. So I'm going to bring my documentation here to the docs, okay? And this documentation is consuming a basic accordion to show it how it looks. Now remember that the composition files are just examples on how you can use it. So this composition file, I will also bring it from you know what, this one, let's write it down. So if we want to render an accordion, we said that our contract defined on these props is that it needs to receive an element list. So this accordion doesn't need to receive any more a text, it needs to receive an element list. Now, an element list, we said that it's an array. And it's an array of elements that they have an ID and they have a title. You see it here. Okay, now, if I want to show the same accordion, I created on the API even an object that I can use for this example. So I don't even need to have twice the code for the example. So I will bring in the football teams. So let's import football teams from LearnBit, share React Native. Now, maybe this should sit in another place because we said, hey, this is going to be the API, it's going to be the contract, and this is not specifically the contract, but this is just a small demo, so I wanted to place it on a place that I can easily consume it. But you might want to have these kind of things on a different component, okay? So I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Render these football teams. And it doesn't complain anymore because this follows the type that we specified on the other component, okay? So looking good. We are consuming the type from this component. We're also consuming this object from this component, one single source of truth. This is amazing, okay? Now, we would like to do the same thing for this, for the other accordion, right? For the composition of this React accordion too. Oh, I just wanted to do this way, okay? And of course, I didn't bring in the football teams, okay? Okay, now that we have the definitions for our accordions and we saw a little bit how Bit works, let's create also the hooks so we can consume it on both accordions. Now, to do that, let's create first those hooks. We still didn't create them. So if we do Bit templates, we can see that we have here React hook as a template. Okay, so let's create two of those components. Bit create React hook, and we want to create something that it's going to be inside base UI / hooks / use open. Basic hook just to know the state of an open close element, and another basic one for selecting, okay, that it's going to be called useSelect. Now if we run bit status, we might be missing some dependency. It's actually missing the React hooks dependency. Okay, so let's install it. So to do that, we will need to run bit install at testing library React hooks. Of course, I want to install a specific version of this one. Okay, so I will do it with this way. I want to install the 8.0.1. Okay, in the meantime, let's head to our hooks. We have useOpen and we have useSelect. I think that these ones we don't need to create we don't need to bring it from the side. We can say, hey, you know what, we have an is open, we have said is open, use state of Boolean, right? That it's going to be false at the beginning, and then we need to return. I mean, I know that this is not a lot of code, and that you can create this code inside the accordion, but wouldn't you need to create it twice? So in order to avoid creating it twice, we can have it as a separated component. Okay, so we have this const is open, and maybe you want to create some const toggle open. Okay, so let's make it let's make an arrow function here. My microphone is kind of on the way when I am trying to see my keyboard. Okay, so const toggle open, it's going to do set is open on the opposite of whatever it was. Okay. Okay. You know what? I don't need these ones. I can just do it this way. Okay, and this is my hook. Beautiful. Now we can update the documentation. All right. So I am just going to bring the documentation from the side. I am actually going to say, okay, so I will also update the composition in a sec. Okay. Component usage, run toggle open to change the status of is open. Okay, and I'm actually not doing it this way, so handles an open close status. Okay, I think this is more than enough. So in our index, we're exporting the use open. We also can have a small demo on this one. So we can say, instead of the count increment, this one is going to be is open and toggle open. And let's do is open to string. Okay, to maybe I want it to uppercase, just to, and on click, let's do toggle open. Okay, now we created a new component. Let's refresh the server. Okay, let's give it a look how it looks. Let's bring it on here. Okay, so we have here our base UI hooks. We have our use open, and if we go to the compositions, we can see this example that we created. Okay, so it's not anymore the count. We can say the open status is okay. Now when I save it and refresh, okay, it's false, true, false, true, false. I can say something like toggle. Okay, okay. So we finished with our hook. We can also even create some tests for it. So const result render hook use is open act. We can do something like expect result.current.isOpen to be false, right? Because we wanted to start with false. We can also do result.current.toggle open, and we can say expect now to be true. Okay. Now, if I want to run this test, I can do bit test, use the ID of this hook, which is base UI/hooks/useOpen, and it's passing our test. Okay, just to make sure, let's make it fail at least once. So let's check that this one, that we don't have any false positive or anything. Let's make it fail. Okay, it's failing. So we know that this one, it's running good. Okay, so we have this useOpen hook, we have the test, we have the docs, we have the composition, and we're exporting it. Amazing. Let's do the same for the useSelect. Okay, now the useSelect, it's going to have this is going to be a selected ID and set selected ID. I'm going to bring it from the side. Okay, this one, not to bore you, we already saw the test, the MDX file, the compositions. So let's make it a little bit faster. Okay, it can receive some kind of initial value, otherwise it's going to be null. Let's copy also the tests. Okay. Opa. And also I'm going to bring the composition, of course. Okay. I'm not coding it because I don't want this video to be longer, but remember, compositions are for creating examples on how to use it. And we also have the test. Now pay attention that here I'm using lodash.sample. Okay. This is a package that just selects a random item from an array. Okay. And in order to use it, I need to install it. Okay. Now let's install this lodash.sample. Now, I mentioned at the start how Bit manages dependencies. Now, this useSelect hook needs to consume this dependency, and I have just added that to our workspace JSON by installing it, so we can see that it's here. Now, the fact that it's here, it doesn't mean that, for example, my other hook is consuming it. Let's give it a look. Okay, so I'm going to start again the server. I'm going to refresh. Okay. Still loading. Okay, now we have it. Now let's go 1 second to, of course, here we have the composition. Okay, and here, let's go to this, to the code. Okay, if you click here, you can view the code. And let's expand the dependencies. Now we can see that this useSelect has as a dependency lodash.sample. And if we go to this useOpen, we see that it doesn't have it, which is kind of cool because it automatically detected which dependency was being consumed by each component. And it's not bringing unnecessary dependencies for components that they don't have it. Okay, so we have these two hooks. We have the useSelect, and we also have this useOpen. So useOpen is working. useSelect. What is, okay, let's refresh 1 second. Okay, so useSelect. So we have 4 teams. We select the random team, and it remembers the ID of the item that it selected. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to create the tokens and to provide a theme for the accordions, and then coding finally our 2 accordions. Okay. Now that we have finished creating our hooks, we can move into the next part. For this section, we're going to create some tokens. When I say tokens, I mean some basic objects. So let's head to base tokens. Okay, let's close these ones. I don't need them open right now. And let's go to base tokens, okay? And these tokens, they're just going to be plain objects, so I don't need right now a composition or a test for this. And let's just create them. So for me, a token, okay, and I will say export const base tokens, okay, they're just going to be some kind of object that has maybe some primary color. This is going to be red. Maybe I have some secondary color. Okay, this is going to be blue, and here we have some border color, green. And some border style, this is going to be solid. Okay, now these are the basic properties that they are going to be shared. Of course, that I want these properties to follow some kind of, they need to have a type. So I would like to say, hey, you know what, export interface, base tokens, props, okay? And these ones are going to be, let's copy these ones. Let's do this one here, string, this one, let's fix it. String, 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 and these ones I actually wanted to be or solid or dot or a dash or undefined. Okay. Now this is it. This is my basic definition. Of course, that this could be a larger object with a lot of primary colors, secondary colors, warning, danger, whatever you need. I am just going to use a few properties for this example. And of course, since I updated my file and I need to update also my export. So let's do also export type here of base tokens props from, let's take this one, right? Let's see that I didn't miss it. Oh, I typed it right. Okay, amazing. And lastly, we need to update the documentation. Okay, so this is not a node module. This is more like, let's bring the documentation, a token object to be shared across React and React Native. And I want to use something that is called object formatter. So I need to install it, this one, because it's going to fail, as you see. Now this is a dependency now, so bit install. So bit install. Okay, I installed. Let's refresh the server. Okay, so let's go here to our tokens. So I imported this object formatter because it shows really nice how an object looks, okay, on the documentation. So here we have the documentation for the base tokens. We have the base tokens themselves. Now let's create some tokens for React Native. Let's get rid of these ones for now. And let's head to the React Native one. And these ones I am just going to bring them from the side. So the React tokens, they look a little bit like this. Now let's bring the base token props, right? And let's bring also the tokens. Now, how do we bring them on? We said that we can do something like, hey, import base tokens from, and I will need to go one folder up, base tokens. And I can say import type base token props also from our base tokens. But we shouldn't have it relative, okay? Because it might be that once you install these tokens as a dependency, it will try to go to one folder up and look for these base tokens, and it's not the way that you want to bring that dependency. So let's do bitlink rewire. I mean, you don't need to do it every time that you create a new, that you import something. You can do it at the end. We're bringing here the tokens, we're exporting it. Let's fix also the index.ts, okay? So here, what are we exporting? We're exporting token props and React tokens, okay? So React tokens, and let's do export type React tokens props. Okay, let's also update the MDX file, which is the one from the documentation. I'm going to bring it from the side. Again, we're using this object formatter, which is going to render us the tokens. Let's give it a look on the UI. Okay. Now it is complaining, okay, that we have one error. So let's give it a look. Why is that? Sometimes when you're handling, we do have, it's saying non-existing dependency. Okay, so it is on the MDX file. We're trying to bring React tokens from React, because I name it different on this project. So it's not React tokens, it's React Native. Maybe I should rename this component. Bit rename dash help. Okay, so we can rename, let's do it, bit rename design tokens slash React Native to design tokens slash React Native tokens. Okay, so this is going to change the ID. Now let's update the location. Okay, so I want to do bit move, and I want to move bit move slash h. So current component directory. So that component directory, it is actually here with share React. So bit move share React Native slash design tokens React Native. I am just refactoring my components. Okay. Because I made a mistake. If you didn't do this mistake, you don't need to fix it. Okay. Tokens. Okay. Okay, let's give it a look. So design tokens. Oh, here we have them, React Native tokens. And we can rename. Let's give it a look on bit list, or maybe bit show design tokens slash React Native tokens. Okay, so we changed the ID. We changed also the location. We fixed it. Now we just need to rename properly these files. This is going to be React Native tokens. And if we change this name of this file, we need to update it here too. React Native dash tokens. Okay. And also here, right? Okay, so this one is actually React Native tokens. Okay. Okay, let's see if it looks good. Okay. I still didn't name it exactly as I did when I created this project on the side, but it's a small difference. Okay. You can rename it again if you like to. Okay. Now let's refresh. And we have some issues. Let's give it a look. Bit status. Looking good. I just need to refresh my server. Yeah, looking good. Okay, so we have created the tokens. We have extended them. How do they look like? Oh, I'm sorry. We just finished with the React Native one. So we have just extended the React Native one. We also checked how we can move a component. How can we rename it? Now let's create the last token that we need, that it's for React. And then let's move to create a theme and to provide it to our accordion. Okay, so let's start by removing these files that I don't want for these React tokens. And React tokens, they are going to extend here, sorry, this file. They're going to extend the base token props and base tokens. We can bring these two imports from here to here. Okay. Now we need to update the index to export the right elements, which is basically adding this type. And we need to also update the documentation. And we have it. Okay, so pay attention. We have this. Let's give it a look to the design tokens. So we have these base tokens that they have like 3 colors and border style. Then it's being extended for the React one. Okay. And then it's being extended again for the React Native. Okay. I think that I pasted wrong some values because they look exactly the same, and this makes no sense for React Native. So let me give it a look 1 second. Okay, now we fixed it. We have here the base tokens that they have like these 3 colors, the React tokens that they also provide some spacing, font size, other properties, and the React Native ones, okay, that they are also changing some of those colors. Okay, good. Now that we have these tokens, we can move in to create the themes to provide it, which a theme is going to be basically a React context with a hook that we can use, and then we will create finally our accordions. Okay, now that we have finished creating our tokens, let's create some theme providers, right? These theme providers, they are going to share through the context API of React those objects, so it could be used for the React components. We have already prepared a component that takes care of that it's named theme-bit/base react.theme.theme-provider. You can give it a look on the components on bit.cloud. For me, I'm just going to install it by using bit install. Okay, so this is the component that I will need to use. Once it finishes loading, we will start coding with that component. So let's go to, in the meantime, let's start with the web version. Okay, so on this web version, we will need to import from this component, okay, theme-bit base react theme provider, a function that it's named create theme. Okay, now if you want to give it a look how this component looks like, you can head to the node modules, right, because we have installed it, and here we can see the file where everything is defined. Okay, so basically when we use this create theme, it's going to return us to an object with 2 elements. One of them is a hook that can use the theme values, and another one it's a theme provider. Okay, now a theme provider, it calls this create theme provider function, which basically returns a provider. Okay, we can see here that it returns a context provider with the theme. Okay, now we need to make sure on the React Native one not to use this one, because here we have a div, okay, and it won't work on React Native. So thankfully we have something that it's options without CSS bars on this component, which returns just a plain provider. So this one will be available. This one will be good for me to use with React Native. Okay. So we saw how this component works on a glance. Let's use it. Okay. Now I'm on this web, so we said we need to bring in the component. Okay. I also will need to bring the tokens, right? Because I will need to provide an object, and I want to provide the React tokens from this package, right? Okay. I think this one I won't need it, this type. Okay. Now let's create a theme. Const theme equals create theme, and we can pass here the type too of this React tokens. So let's do React tokens props. Okay. So let's pass in it here, and let's call it with we want theme to be the React tokens, right? And we do want the CSS bars. By default it's true, so I don't need to pass it. and that's it. Okay, now I can say const, I can deconstruct, right? Use theme and theme provider equals my theme. Okay, this one I don't need it anymore. And I can export these two elements. Okay, let's export the use theme and the theme provider. Okay, of course I need to provide it to the index. Okay, because I'm going to export the use theme and theme provider, and that's it for now. Now let's create some examples on how this theme provider can be used. Okay, to do that, we are heading to our composition file. Okay, and first of all we will need to bring those components, those not components, elements exported. So the theme provider and the use theme. Let's delete this one. Okay, I'm just going to bring the components from the side, and so here we have a type. This is coming from the component itself. It has a problem with the type definition, so I'm just going to ignore it for now. Okay, so let's give it a look. I'm creating basically two components. One is a component that it's going to be using CSS variables. Okay. And the other one, it's a component that it's using the theme from, it's using the hook, okay? So on our composition file, we should be able to see two elements styled, one with the context provider and the other one with the use theme hook. Ultimately, on our accordion component, we would like to use the hook. Okay, so let's see if the server is running. It looks like it is running, so let's head to our Explorer. Let's put it here. Okay, so let's go to the theme. Let's go to the web one. I think that I might need to refresh. Okay, let's refresh because web is not exported from. Actually, I need to update the docs because here this doc is trying to import web and I modify it. It's not anymore import web. It's like use theme or theme provider. Okay. And this component, this is like a theme provider. Let's make it a theme provider and a hook that provides the design tokens. Okay. Now component usage. This one, let's for component usage, let's import the composition actually. So are we exporting here on this composition? Yes, we're exporting the demo hook and the basic theme compose. So component usage, you can use a hook inside the component, can use theme hook inside the component or the theme provider. I'm keeping it short for now at least. So let's render what is the name of our component. Let's render here. I want to use this demo hook. So I'm just going to do demo hook, self-close. We need to import it, of course. We're not importing it. So let's bring demo hook component from web.compositions. Okay. Now let's give it a look if it's running on our browser. I cannot resolve web.compositions. Because it's .composition. Misspelled that. Okay, so it is looking good. Here we see that these two components, they are styled, looking good. Okay, we can also add some tests afterwards. For this demo, I am not keeping tests. I just want to keep it short. You will have those tests on the final video, okay, on the code, so don't worry. Now let's create the mobile one. So the mobile one, it's going to be pretty similar, unless we can take the same docs and adapt it a little bit. So this one is going to be a theme provider and a hook that provides the design tokens for React Native. And maybe on the other one, we can update it to be for React, right? For React. And okay, so we have the docs. We said that the tests, we're skipping them for now. And the component, let's fix afterwards this yelling thing from TypeScript. Now the mobile is going to look similar to this one. Actually, on this one I don't need any more React, right? It's going to be similar, but it will have some slight differences. First of all, we're not going to bring the React tokens, but we're going to bring the React. So let's do import React native tokens. So it brought the import relative, so we will need to fix it. You already know how, okay? So now let's also bring the type, which is our native tokens props, I think. Yeah. And let's replace here, 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 here. And we want it without CSS bars, true, all right? Because if we provide this one, we have only a theme provider, no divs, which is what we actually want. So right now these two can go away. We need to now rewire our links. Beautiful, we have it as we should. Now let's use the composition files, okay? Now to create some examples, it's going to be pretty similar as the web version. I just have the examples on the side, so I am just going to bring them in, okay? Now we see that it's working good, and that we have our basic theme compose, looks good, and the hello world. Now, shouldn't the hello world be with some color or something? Let's give it a look. So, color should be primary color, and primary color, maybe what's its value, right? Maybe the primary color on the, let's give it a look to the React Native token. So primary color, it's black. Okay, so it makes sense that this one, it's black. Just to check, let's put some other color, okay? So I update it to purple. And beautiful, we have it updated. Now give it a look. So if we were working on a project and we need to update the theme, if we update the tokens, then the theme updates and everything kind of rolls down with those updates. So this is actually super nice, okay? Okay, so we have the two themes. Now that we have the themes, we have the design tokens, we have the hooks. Let's create the accordions. Let's head to our React accordion. You know what? Let's start with the React Native one, which is here, okay? And let's start coding it. So we have this type definition that it's coming from this component. Now let's use also the hooks and the themes, okay? Now for that, we'll need to bring this is open. You know what? Let's start by just bringing the hook. Use open, okay? Now we need to do the same thing for use select, and we will need to use the same thing for the theme. Okay, now pay attention which theme you're using. Pay attention to it, because it's not going to be the same for the one that it's the web version than the one that it's for the mobile. They will have different type definitions, okay? So let's import those hooks, okay? Import use open from, and it's here hooks slash hooks slash use open. Want to do the same thing for use select, okay? Remember that we need to bit link rewire those, and we also want to bring the use theme hook, okay? Use theme will bring us all the properties that we want for styling our project. So here we want to bring it from one folder up, theme slash. Now pay attention, we are on the React one, so we want the mobile. And maybe we didn't export it. We didn't export it actually, so let's fix that. Mobile, I think from the index, right? Yeah, makes sense. So here we wanted to export use theme, theme provider. So this is the basic definition. It's like both of them, they're going to have this template, not render, return. And they're both going to return some kind of object, some kind of element that will wrap everything, of course. In this case, it's going to be a view, okay? So we need to also import this view from React Native. You know, let's import this view. Import view. We will also need, why is it yelling at me? I'm closing it. Yeah, here, better. So we'll need to bring the view. Okay, this is like wrapping everything. Here we will need to have some kind of pressable element. So we'll use pressable from React Native. And when we click this element, we'll have like a text, like click here to, and here open close, right? To open close, we will need to attach an event listener, of course. And here we will have like some kind of element that collapses and shows a rendered list. Okay, so in React Native, it's going to be a flat list. Now, there are a few libraries that create this collapse effect. One of them is React Native Collapsible, so that is what we're going to use for this one. And let's install it. Okay, so bit install React Native Collapsible. Okay, now this is because not all of the libraries are compatible between React and React Native. So for React Native, we'll need to use this one, and for React, we will use another one. Okay, so we install it. So let's bring this import statement. So import collapsible from React Native Collapsible. Okay, and of course, without typos, usually works better. Okay, capital C, even better. Okay, now let's start. So this is the basic template that both of our accordions will have. We'll bring in the hooks. Okay, then we will return some element that is wrapping with one that it's clickable, and then a list that collapses and renders all of our items. Okay, so let's start here. So this pressable element, we need to have some. Let's bring on here all the elements, right? It's open. I will need here set is open, set is open, set. How is it called? Isn't it set is open? Toggle open. Okay, toggle open. Okay. Now select did ID, use selection this way, not use selection, set selection, sorry, my bad. And here we need to bring in all the values that we have in the token, which are primary color, secondary color, spacing, border width, border color, border width, border style. Let's bring all of them. Okay, so here we're presenting all the elements, and let's create here a more accurate legend for this text. So click here too instead of open close. Let's open our bracket. So if it's open, let's do close, and if it's close, open. Okay, to close, open the menu. Okay. Now, what else do we need? We need also to pass an event listener to this one. So on press, we'll do toggle open. Okay. What else do we need? We can pass in some styles. Okay. Let's do. So for this one, let's pass some style. Okay. So I'm bringing it from the side, this option. So we're basically using the border width. Why is it complaining this one? So on border style, we have a problem. Let's check that. Why? Okay, now we have this this style for this toggle open. And we want to have some kind of flat list here. Okay, we would like to have a flat list. So let's bring also the flat list from React Native, and let's do. We also want to this collapsible element needs to have a property that if it's collapsed or not, and actually it's going to be the opposite of its open. So maybe afterwards we will need to refactor this is open to is collapse. I don't know, could be. So this flat list, let's make it self-closing because it's not going to wrap anything. And we're going to need to pass some data to be rendered, okay, which is our element list, right? It's the, we receive some, we have some, why is it yelling now? because I'm still missing some props. Okay, so we want to pass in the list of that we want to render, which is being received here. Okay. Now we also will need to pass a render item that it's mandatory. Okay, so let's create it in a sec. This render item. We also would like to pass extra data that it's going to be the selected ID. So inside this render item, we will compare if the selected ID matches the item ID, and if it does, we will render some styling, and if it doesn't, another one. And lastly, we will also need a key extractor. Okay, so let's pass a function, okay, that receives the item and it grabs the item.id. Okay, now it's complaining here because I don't have a render item element, so let's create it. And this render item, it's going to receive item as props, and actually this item has a type which is item, right? Now it's because it's the type of the element list. It's an array of items, so this one needs to be just one item. So let's import this type. Now pay attention, the type is coming from this this component. So if I update the definition of my type on the item, boom, I have it also updated on both my React and my React Native component. So that is pretty awesome. Okay, so we have this item. What we will need to return? We'll need to return a touchable opacity. Okay, touchable opacity. Okay, of course we need to bring it on from React Native. Okay, now this touchable opacity, what do we need? First of all, an on-press event. Okay, what do we want to do on press? We would like to do actually a set selection, okay, of item.id. Okay, so we want to set the selection with this item.id, and here we need to render which item do we have. Okay, so since the ID might be hard to read, we will use this item.title. Okay, so far looking good. Now we said that we wanted to have some different styling if it is the selected element or not. So const color, maybe it could be if the item ID matches the selected ID, then let's use the primary color, else let's use the secondary color. Now we have this color select color, so I can pass it here. Let's use this style here, and let's say that this text color is going to be this one. Okay, and here let's also pass some style. Okay, let's pass also this style. It's going to be an object where we're going to have that the border color will be the color that we created right now. We will have also some properties coming from the hook: border style, border width. What else can we have here? We can have the margin bottom. It's going to be whatever it is specified on the spacing. Also the padding. Okay, we could have had two properties for margin and padding. We just are using the same one for now, and I think that it looks good overall. Let's indent. Okay, I think that it's looking good. Oh, it's complaining. Let's give it a look. Why? Let's give it a look. Okay, flat list item, get the following error, type item, void, it's not assignable to list render. Oh, okay, we need to return some kind of item. Let's give it a look what is going on here. I'm not returning. I forgot the return here. Okay, so without a return makes sense. Okay, so now it is looking good. Let's run. I didn't create any styles at the end, so thank you, bye bye. And let's give it a look if this is working properly. And let's do bit status. Wow, issues. Let's give it a look. Oh, okay, so I need to install and compile. So let's do that. And we also have some. And we didn't fix the relative imports. Okay, so let's do that. Bit link -- rewire. And bit install, and bit compile itself, so why would it install? Now let's do bit status. Okay, looking good. Let's see our server. How is it doing? React Native, accordion. Okay, so it looks like our accordion. Do you remember that we created a composition that we supplied the football teams? So if we go to our composition, you see that this accordion just renders a football teams, that this football teams is also coming from this component. So if we go to compositions, let's give it a look. We click here to open the menu, and it is working as we wanted. Amazing. Now that we have finished with this React Native component, let's create the React one. The React one is going to look very similar to the React Native, but it will have a slightly different implementation. So let's go to that React. Okay, so actually some parts, let's open them on the side. It will be good for showing the differences. So basically we're going to need most of the same imports. Of course, we are not going to need the React Native ones, and we're not going to need this collapsible, and the theme is going to come from theme.web, right? Okay, so we're going to use the theme, right? Let's paste it before here. Okay, now when we say return here, let's return. Okay, let's do a div. And what else do we have? Okay, so we need, I'm just going to use plain divs for making it simpler. You can use the right elements that you want. You can use h1, h2, paragraphs, text components, whatever. I'm just going to keep it simple for now. And here we have what it's here, pressable element, and has some style. Here we'll say on click equals this toggle open. Okay, here we're going to have the same text. Okay, so click here, and instead of having this collapsible, we'll have another element. Okay, that it's also actually a collapsible, but it's going to come from a different library, that it's React collapsible. Okay, so bit install React collapsible. Okay, so let's bring it in, import collapsible from React collapsible, and here let's do a collapsible, and this one has a slightly different usage. So here we're using collapse, and if we want to set a time, I think that this one it's, let's give it a look, because I want to set a time. Collapsible props, it has duration. Okay, so for example on this one, duration on the React one could be 180, and here let's give it a look to this one. So here it's called transition time, so it's a little bit different, the usage, and here it's it has a prop open. So here we have collapse, here we have open, here we have transition time, here we have duration. Nothing to do. Those are the differences on these two libraries. Okay, so let's use, we said, I already forgot, transition time and open. Okay, so transition time, let's bring it the same time, and we can also do here open, the value of is open. Okay, now we need to pass in, why is it yelling? Trigger. We need a trigger for this one. The trigger, it's a component actually. Okay, so let's make a trigger component. Now what it's going to be our trigger, what for us it's the render item here. Okay, so let's define the trigger here. Okay, and let's do const trigger equals, and let's so this trigger, it's going to return, okay, a div. Okay, first of all we need to enclose it. This div will have a style, of course. Okay, let's fill it in a sec. What else it's going to have? It's going to have also to have an event listener, like on click, This one will use the set selected, right? Set selection with the item ID, okay? No, actually, not with the item ID. It's going to the thing that we place here. It's actually the trigger, okay? So we need to move this piece here, okay? Let's place it here for now. Let's fix here these brackets. So these are the different implementations that there are for React and React Native, okay? So this is not set selection, it's toggle open, because this is the trigger. So I don't need this div so far, okay? So this is my trigger so far. And we also have the style, right? So the style, it was something like border width, border color, border style. Okay, I can take it as it is. Let's take it as it is. I have an extra bracket. I have an extra bracket here. Okay, looking good. Here we have our trigger, which is this component that we created. We could also have created it outside and really down props. For me, it's fine here for now. And we need also to return a map list, okay? So let's do something like if element list dot length is greater than 0, and here I will start with my mapped list, okay? So again, I need some curly brackets here. Element list dot map element, where here we will return an item, okay, for each one of these elements. What is going to be an item? An item is going to be a div, okay. What it's going to have? Okay, it will need to have a key, okay. So this is going to be e.id. Now this here is representing the render item element, okay. So if we give it a look, how did we created it here? We do the color check, okay. So const color. So let's call this one item. If the item.id, so this one it will be item.id, okay. And then we will need to on click instead of on press, okay. On click equals to set selection of item.id, okay. Now this is the element. We will need to provide here some text for the item.title, okay, and we need to provide here the style, right? So here we will have, let's copy these ones. So this is like the color, and I can set also the color here, okay, for the item.title. I don't need to, because here I need to wrap it on a text element. Here I don't need to. So I think this is it. Maybe we can move this one to also to a render item just for being a little bit more legible. Okay, so let's do a const render item. And here we have an item, okay, that this one is from type item, right? And so for this one, we're going to say element list, return for each one of these, render item, okay, where item equals item, okay. And what else am I missing? Oh, I'm not placing a return here. Okay. Okay, looking good. Let's try it out. Let's do a bit status before. Everything looking good. Let's check that we have a composition file. We do have it. So let's give it let's check that the server is still running. It is. Let's bring it on. So let's bring it on here. So this one is the React Native one. I will refresh. And here we have the React one. Now, if we give it a look, I click, it opens. Here I have it with blue and red. Let's open them side by side, okay? Okay, so let's go also to the compositions here. Let's open them, each one of them on a different. So here we have the two versions. On my left, the React Native one. On my right, the React one. And we can see how these two elements have different styling. The React Native one looks with a smaller padding, and while the right one, which is the React one, has a larger one, and it has like blue and red colors, while this one has purple and gray. Let's think about a sec of what we have done. We created two components that they are meant to be used on different environments, but we recycle a lot of code. They are both consuming the same dependencies. They are both consuming these two hooks. They are both consuming the same types that we created for these accordions, and they are both consuming the same base tokens. Now, it is true that the React Native and the React tokens are different, but at least they do have some part in common, and they are not 100% unrelated. And to speak a little bit more about that, I would like to show you the dependency graph, okay? So if we go to dependencies, let's go to the dependencies of each one of these components. Let's go here. Let's go to dependency graph. Let's give it a look. So here we have our React Native component that it's consuming the API, it is consuming the use open, use select, and it's also consuming this theme. At the end, we see that this theme, it's consuming the base tokens, same way as it is the React one. But the difference is that afterwards, it is being consumed by a different component. This is being consumed by the React Native tokens, while this one is consumed by the React tokens. Now, the theme here, it consumes the same theme provider, okay? So we can see how these two components, despite being for different platforms, they share a lot of code. And that is code that you only wrote once, and that you can import, that you can create new versions, that you can update, and that you can always be sure that it's going to be updated across these two elements. So I think that that's it. I just wanted to show you lastly regarding the dependencies. So if we go here to the dependencies, we install a lot of packages during this project. Now, we can see that in these dependencies, this one is only using the React Native collapsible. Despite we have on our workspace also the React collapsible, it's not a dependency of this component because Bit detects which one dependencies are being used. The same goes for this accordion. If I go to the dependencies, I will see the React collapsible and not the React Native one. Even further, we have a dependency on one of the hooks, useSelect, that it was a dev dependency. We use Lodash for our compositions and our test files. So if I go to my dependencies here, I will see that Lodash.sample, it's not part of the dependencies, but from the dev dependencies, which I think that it's amazing. Now, I think that that's all for today, and thank you very much for viewing the video.